You want to make sure that it's a good height. And I think you look pretty good. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, McHugh. Before I start, I just want to give thanks to John Cavalier for facilitating these events, and I appreciate what you've done here in the Antique District here in Denham Springs. And I told him earlier when I walked in, I said this was an engineering firm back before the 90s. And I told him I would come through the back door, hit the elevator, go up, and we would discuss the topics of the parish. And so that leads me to my next statement. I've been a resident here for 35 years in Livingston Parish. My wife and I, we married in 88, and she's a retired teacher of the parish. She taught at Southside Elementary, and she's been a second grade teacher all her life. And we used to have conversation, and I would ask her, I said, hey, why don't you do something different, go fourth, fifth grade? And she goes, I don't want to look up to my students. My wife's about that tall. So anyway, that's how we communicate. She's the kind of person that wants to come home and have a civil conversation and talk with adult language. And when I come home dealing with adults all day in the work ethics of life, I want to be a kid. So sometimes we don't mesh in the middle, and we go about what we do. But we have two daughters, 33 years old and 29, and I've got 6 grandkids, and all my girls grew up right here in this parish. And I'm so proud of where they're at today. One lives in Henderson, right outside of Breaux Bridge, Louisiana. And my youngest daughter, she lives here in Baton Rouge. And you talk about make some great moms. That's what they do. That's their living. They stay at home, work with their kids, send their kids to school. And I'm so proud of it. My wife and I grew up in a Christian element as we were married. And I was probably the late bloomer. I decided that there was some voids in my life and growing up, and I decided at a young age of 20 that I accepted Christ in my life, and it really changed me. It helped me to grow up. It helped me to understand life in general, and it also helped me to understand living with a woman. So that really gave me a humble lifestyle, and doing that, been married 35 years. So we've had a great life. We've enjoyed what we do, and what I have put into this parish consists of being on the board for Livingston Sewer. I think I joined that district in 1990. I was appointed by the police jury of all times by a gentleman by the name of Sam DiGirolamo. And at that time, the sewer district didn't have a working facility. They had 3 wastewater ponds. They had an influent, they had another pond for mixing and aeration, and then they had a settlement pond, and they had a chlorination pond, which really wasn't a pond. It was more of just a retention to get chlorine in so we could get sewer back out to the ditches and get it back down the stream. And during that time, my goal was to get out of ponds, get into mechanical treatment plants, get sewer out of our ditches, and also to be able to take these 200 to 300 plus subdivisions that have homes in them, get those treatment plants offline because they were not effective then, they're not effective now. And that's the quick fix for developers to throw that in place. And what I think now, and maybe some of you councilmen out here can verify that, I think we have laws in place that if you have access to sewer as a builder, you've got to go to sewer. So been very thankful in moving that along, getting sewer out of our ditches. Served on that board for 27 years. For 6 years, I was the chairman of the board. And in 2017, there just needed to be some changes. I thought I had pretty much finished up with that side of doing business on the environmental side. And so at that point, I twiddled my thumbs and I thought, I don't think I'm done being a public servant. So in 2019, I ran for District 2 council seat, and we lost by margins. And so it came up again this year. My goal was to enjoy life. I'm be 59 years old in January. And my goal was to start settling down, be a papaw for the grandbabies, enjoy my hobbies, and just take it easy and just kind of gradually just slide out of the public service. Well, the Lord, look, he wouldn't let me sleep for 3 nights. I told people the quick fix is I'm not doing it. I'm not jumping back in the race. So as I'd lay in bed at night, my conscience would not let me sleep. And for 3 nights, I was losing sleep. I'd already thrown my signs away from the previous 4 years. I'd given my stakes to another person that needed some sign stakes, and I put them in a dumpster and I walked away. 2 days later, boy, did I eat that. I wish I'd have had those signs back. As I would lay in bed, I kept hearing these words in spirit, and it said, "You're not done. You're not done." And I woke up about after the 4th night of having trouble sleeping, and I told my wife, I said, "I got bad news." And she goes, "No, don't tell me." I said, "I won't back in." I said, "I think there needs to be something done out here, and I'm not done serving the public." So here I am today. I've decided, it was probably in January to February, I decided to pick back up and get back in the race. And so in all my years of playing sports, all my years of racing motorsports, I've always done my talking on the track and on the field. And to that, I take those same morals and that same thought process, and that's how I do business. And I try not to get in the trenches, talk ugly about folks, stay positive. And so that's the way I've been running my race. So regardless of who wins this race, I'm going to shake hands and we'll pick back up at another time. So that's a little bit about my background. And I'm currently doing safety work. I've been in the business for doing safety consulting for a firm out of Baton Rouge. And with my environmental background, it's been a good mix. I've been able to serve through my environmental background as health and safety for the parish. And also, I think with risk management skills, I think it would be a great asset to the council. So here I am, I'm back in, and I'll give you a little bit of background and history where that sewer district started. Back in 1990, they formed a board, and what they did, they asked me to come in, and I was selling wastewater treatment equipment. I saw what they had, I saw what wasn't working, and I offered them a plan. Retention, mechanical equipment, anything that would help the degradation to get the sewer treated before it got back in our ditches. And so I offered that. It was mechanical equipment and all that. And as a salesman to them, they said, "Hey, can you stay after the meeting? We want to talk to you." And I kept thinking, I've got this sale in the bag. I'm fixing to get some commission. I've got some bills to pay. These people are about to write me a check. Well, I didn't know it was coming. I was 25 years old back then. And I really didn't know what direction I was going in with this organization, working with these guys on the board for sewer. So they said, "Hey, we got a proposition for you. You live in the district?" "Yes." "You know sewer and wastewater? You know environmental?" "Yes." "Would you be willing to be a board member?" And I kept thinking, I'm about to really score. A board member too? So I thought, this is a no-brainer. I got this. They said, "Can you get in a pickup truck, go to a police jury meeting on a Thursday night? We'll appoint you through I mentioned Sam DiGirolamo, and he gave me the opportunity to start my day off working with the parish and getting sewer, getting safety, and getting health back in the program, because we've always been known as a depressed parish. Well, it was time to move forward. So with that being said, we were offered a pickup truck, a shovel, a manager, and a helper. And they left the facility at the water board out here, and they moved across the street to where the waste treatment plant was with no roof over their head. That's how our sewer program started. And if you look at it today, it's a full-blown $1.5–2 million mechanical plant. Back then it's probably worth $6–7 million now. And we're also growing a south plant across the interstate to pick up those homes that the city can't pick up. And I'm not a part of that now, but I'm glad to say I was a part of the initial setup to get the ball rolling, to get things moving, to improve the safety and the health of our parish. So that's why I want to be in this race. God told me 3 nights in a row, you're not done. So with that being said, that's how I began as a public servant serving our community here in this parish.
So you talked about being integral in the initial growth, the starting of and the initial growth of the sewer district. Obviously, that has grown quite a bit. Just several years ago, bought a few other sewer districts, trying to get some grow. Other than sewer, as you run for this seat in District 2, which is the Watson area for those of you listening, what are some of the other things that you would like to work on and bring to your district?
As a councilman?
Yes, should you be elected, pardon me.
Thank you. McHugh, the key thing that comes to mind, and again, I sometimes wonder, I'm not a guy with big words, but I'm going to tell you the one key that's missing out on that council. And I mentioned to somebody out here, they're already aware of what I'm going to say. We need unity. We need it bad. We need to be able to respect one another and let our egos go and get back with the program, and let's move this parish forward. We're in the middle of moratorium, working on zoning and building. And, you know, here's what I feel about a moratorium. People ask me, you for or against it? I said, first, let me give you my explanation of a moratorium. A moratorium is put in place after you exhausted every avenue to fix or repair the problem. If you can't get it fixed, the best way to do it is put on the brakes. Let's get somebody in here to help and assist. So whether or not the moratorium was coming, I knew that we had a consultant that had experience in helping us with our zoning and our building and getting all that back online. So whether we had it or not, I knew it would, if I'm elected, I knew it was going to be handed off to me, either finished or near finished, and we needed to complete it. So that's one of the key things I'm looking forward to working with the council and getting that done. The other things, it's going to sound like a rerun. We've got drainage issues. And I've heard people say we need a parish-wide drainage plan. Well, we do. We really do. And once we get that in place, is it going to cost money? How's it going to be funded? Well, the thing is, first of all, I don't know that answer yet, but here's what I can tell you. You put 9 heads together and you get the parish president involved and you have unity, I guarantee it, we're going to get it done. That's the key. I can't do it by myself. When I sat on that board for 27 years, I never gave myself credit for anything that we grew, we got better at, we improved. There were an engineer involved. There was a legal team involved. There were other board members involved. And then we also had bonding agents involved. When you bring that kind of mass together in one room and you work for the same direction, good things are going to happen. And that's the key thing I want to see out there at that council. I would love to see unity back in place.
So you brought up earlier that your experience in safety and some of the things you've done professionally would benefit the council.
Absolutely.
Can you quantify that?
In areas with working with improvements.
However you'd like to.
In areas where we're dealing with drainage. I'm not even on the board for drainage. But I go to those meetings because it's in my district. It affects the people that I deal with on a regular basis. I get phone calls. Hey, I got an issue. Can you help me to get the answers? And I said, if you'll help me, put yourself on the agenda. I'll walk right in the door with you and we'll sit down and we'll give them the whole aspect of what you're dealing with. And so we can come up with a solution. And I said, I might not have all the answers, but there's a whole board sitting there. There's a manager sitting there. I said, we need to get it jump started. I said, so the key is you got to meet me there. And I've been walking people through the door since probably about March. And I'm not even the councilman out there. So those are key things I would work on in my area. On the legislative side, I want to be able to enforce the law. I want to be able to improve. I want to be able to help change to make it better. I'd like to minimize those risks in areas where we have voids where it's stated. I don't know all the jargon, but here's the thing. I would never want to go to a meeting and not have a legal team there, not have an engineer there. And that's the things I've learned in my past to help improve the effectiveness of that council out there. So there's been meetings where I've been there and I'm looking around and I don't see sometimes the legal team there. And it's like, I wouldn't have a meeting without it because I want a backup plan. If something's said, I want to know that if I have a question, that I give them an answer and the legal team's there to back me up. So with that being said, has it worked effectively the whole time? No, but here's the thing is when you have unity, you're going to have a stronger team.
Would you, you bring up unity a lot. Would you suggest that your previous professional work would help you establish that unity?
Absolutely, because I'm not one to tear down or break down anything that's going to hinder the public in Livingston Parish. And not only am I going to be working for District 2, but I'm only one vote. I need 8 more votes to make things happen. So I want to work on that agenda with all of our councilmen. So if it's important that we get along, unity again, I think we won't have a problem moving forward.
Sounds like we have an early candidate for parish council chairman next year. When you're talking about the parish-wide drainage plan, you live in a funded gravity drainage district currently that drains into technically 2 funded gravity drainage districts, 5 and 1. I think you kind of answered it, but I do want to ask specifically, when you talk about parish-wide drainage, why?
I'll give you an example. I think I heard Valerie Hodge speak earlier about that co-meat being dredged and the debris coming out of there earlier. Well, who takes the hit after that? It comes downhill, right? It comes to us. So when they open that avenue and it comes and that water hits us like an expressway, that's a term I've heard. We haven't done anything to help ourselves out. So if we don't have a parish-wide plan in place and we get another, how many days of rain did we have? We had over 24 days. So when they have a way to get rid of their water after they've cleaned up their debris, all it's going to do is back up when it hits our front door. So the goal is to grasp what's coming down the rivers in the tributaries and make sure that each district coordinates together a plan that when they're done with that a tributary or that canal or that creek or that small river, that they have completed it through and through for each district. Right now, I think there's a communication problem. And what I do believe we need to do is just make sure that we join each one of those districts together and say, hey, this is our plan. We have a goal. These are the dates to set them. We got a start date. We have an end date. And then we have an auditor that goes behind and checks the work. We need to make sure that the fundings are going to the right allocation. And then we do audits, we make the check, and we determine whether or not do we have any voids in our streams. We need to gather that information. We need to stay on top of that. And the goal is to make sure we don't have any bottlenecking in between there.
So currently south of here, a big development remains relevant and on everybody's top of mind awareness when it comes to Deer Run. Zoning and development are big topics of conversation at the parish level. Right now, I believe your district has an adopted zoning map, but development is still coming because of the continued improvement of Live Oak High School. What are your feelings on, you already discussed the moratorium, how you would have handled that. What are your feelings on the zoning map as it was enacted? That's the word I'm looking for. And what are your feelings on ongoing development in the parish?
That's a great question. Since 1980, mid-80s, our growth has been on us. But the problem we have now, we have outrun the utilities, outrun the road system, outrun the school system. We are overcapacitated with people that have just come in, and now we're in a pickle. So the goal would be to anyone that is willing to come in and build or subdivide or build any type of, and I'm thinking about multi-level apartment complexes. That even includes those guys because that is an impact. And when you look at those impacts, we need to make sure that, I'll give you an example, 5 schools in my district, 3 of them are already maxed out. And if you look at what's coming down the pipe for development, we really don't have the capacity to take them in our schools. So at some point, as a council, we need to come together. What kind of impacts we need to put in place? Who's going to pay those impacts? Who's going to keep account for those impact fees? And when we need it, will it be there? And I think at this point in time, we're not sure that it's there anymore. Where did it go? What was it appropriated to when it was funded to improve schools, to improve the capacity, to improve our sewers, to improve our water, our quality of water? I just looked the other day driving down the road and I said, water tower popped up. Well, I didn't even know there was a water tower there, but my point is somebody cleared some property and now you can see the thing from the highway. And it's like, I didn't even know we had water in that area in Livingston Parish. So there's areas that we as a council, as we move forward, I'm not the guy that's going to say, okay, I'm okay with what we've dealt with. I want to pass it through to other engineers. I want to pass it through legal. I want to make sure it's done. I don't mind handing it off and getting experience in those areas. And I think that's where we were lacking from the get-go, from Jump Street. If we would have included that, I think we would have made a little better progress at getting getting zoning, getting construction in place, and finding out, what are we going to do about the impact on our roads, our schools, our utilities, So with that being said, I just feel like if we can just take heed of what the consultant's going to do for us and putting that plan together, we need to review it as a whole. We need to pass it off. We don't need to make judgment on it right away. We need to make sure that it fits Livingston Parish.
And you mean zoning, correct?
Zoning, correct. Yes.
The second question, or second part of that question, was development. Again, Live Oak continues to be a successful school system, drawing a lot of people up to that Watson area. What are your feelings on the ongoing growth in Livingston Parish? And there's been a lot of more intense and strict rules passed in Chapter 125, which is development. How do you feel about those as well?
I like that 125. I really do. I just wish we could have implied it more. I wish they would have had more agreements amongst themselves when they would vote for these changes. But I'm not going to look backwards. I'm going to look forward. My goal is to improve what we've been offered and accept it and make sure. And look, you hit a key point. You're talking about the zoning portion of it. And as I look across this room, some of you may have acreage. Some of you may live on a cattle farm that's just land now. Some of your family members may have moved out of the state and it's just you. And at one point you have to decide, the kids don't want it. What do I do with it? Well, if a developer shows up and he says, hey, I'd like to offer, I'd like to offer you a lump sum for this. What would it cost me to satisfy your needs? Well, I look at it like this, like you would. If that number hits the tier that I'm looking for, it's a done deal. I mean, we're aging out. I'm soon to be 60 in 1 year. And I could see myself not wanting to put that much effort in property that the family didn't want. So, of course, I would be interested in maybe moving it and then a developer take it over. So with the zoning, I had a guy ask me the other day, and look, he's got some property. They're well known up there north of us, the ball fields on Highway 16 on both sides of the roads. Great family. I know a lot of them very well. And have talked to a few because some of them sit on boards throughout our parish. And the one question that concerned him is, he says, man, I don't want a moratorium. He said, I don't want to be told what I got to do with my property. And the key word I always hear when I go to a council meeting, and I get tickled because some of you councilmen, this is the word almost like the devil, the waiver. I would be willing to continue to work with property and landowners to give them a waiver if they wanted to subdivide and offer some to their family or subdivide a portion of it and sell it. But the key is, what's the person that's going to buy it? What are they going to do with it? And at that point, then we have to lean on our rules and regulations at that point. We don't need a lot of big growth right now. We need to figure out how do we pay for it. And the impact fees, we really got to work on that. We have to really study, who's going to be responsible for the impact fees? Is it going to be the developer or is it going to be the homeowner when he buys it? Well, in my opinion, if the developer wants to push it over to the homeowner when he buys it, that's their option. I don't care how we get the funding, but we need to find out that we're getting funding for that impact, whether it be a multi-level dwelling or whether it be a subdivision with 1,200 homes on it. So the key is, are we going to have the money on the impact side there when we need it to redo the roads, to improve the pumps at the lift stations for the sewer, to provide clean water, to be able to, pay those teachers because the classrooms don't get bigger, the walls don't stretch. But when you put kids in it and you've got more there, that's a lot of stress on an educator. And like I mentioned earlier, my wife went from teaching a classroom of 20 kids on average, and then when they brought in No Kid Gets Left Behind program, Then it brought in a paraprofessional. That's 2 adults in a classroom that's still the same size. Then you get Spanish kids coming in. We need to educate those as well. What do you get? An interpreter, because she's got to be able to explain what the teacher's saying to those kids. So now you got 3 adults and you got a classroom that's over maxed out. And my wife put it in terms like this. I felt like I'm running a 3-ring circus sometimes, because my distraction's not my kids now. It's the other 2 adults trying to run my classroom. So I understand there are issues in the school system. And my point is, we need to be able to develop, to get a classroom, to get a strategy together to be able to accommodate all 3 in one.
You brought up impact fees a couple of times. There is currently a discussion between the parish council and the school board about school impact fees. The number sits $7,500, $7,800 per child.
Yes.
Correct. What are your feelings on that as another impact fee that you would apply?
What other method besides taxing the residents and the business owners of our parish, that we're already at the top tier of the highest paid taxed parish in the state of Louisiana? So I don't oppose to listening to that, and I don't oppose to implementing $7,500 or whatever the number is per child to be able to recoup those funds so we can accept growth. To me, if a developer comes in and he says, I can't afford to build what I want to build, there's other places they could go. But not only that, but it improves the class of living in Livingston Parish when you can afford a home and it doesn't hurt the home buyer and they accept the home. So I think there's that person out there that wants to move here. They want our education. They want to get out of what's going on in the inner cities. And Ascension and Livingston are the top 2 highest places in the state, in the parish, as far as parish goes, that people are moving to. So we better embrace it. That's my term. We need to embrace this and we need to move forward. And I don't think the people that live here all their lives need to be hit with more taxes. I'm not in for taxes. I've been against tax growth in areas that I felt like we already pay those taxes. You need to manage your money, on a level, whoever's running that particular district or what have you. So I don't mind somebody putting their thumb on me and saying, hey, you sit on a council. Where's this money going? Well, you know what? If I don't know where it's at, maybe we need to implement more audits on where our money's going and have a check and balance. So I think that's one of those keys that would help the public, the homeowners, the business owners to understand where's the money being spent. Transparency is a word that I hear all the time, but that's where I'm going to use it in this situation.
Kind of moving in a totally different direction. Animal control has become another conversation topic at the parish council. Obviously, there is a shelter, but it is underfunded. Denham and Walker have their own. They remain full. What are your thoughts, feelings on trying to find a way to get funding for the parish-wide animal shelter?
In my past, in trying to develop funds for something we don't have, I would hire a bonding agent first. And I would use our engineers, our local engineers, and say, hey, you want a commission for your work? Go find this money. Let them throw the net. Let them bring it to us. Let them tell us what it's about. And then we choose whether it's a fit or not. We need to put in some type of caveat to get more bonding and more ways to pay for these, but we need to do it on small increments. We just can't go blow it out and then we have nothing but debt. Then we have no way to pay for it. So on the flip side of what you just asked, I would look for sponsorship programs. There's dog food manufacturers. I'm going to use one, for example, Purina. If they have an understanding of what type of investment that we have with our animal control, they may put a banner up. And then we may get some sponsorship. It might not be big money, but if we get multiple people that make food that has pet supplies, get them involved, we need to see what that funding of sponsorship could be. And I don't know that the council's ever thought about that, and I don't know if that's even been an issue. But I do have an individual, and she's a dog lover, and she's willing to go look for that kind of stuff. And, she's the woman that wouldn't even charge. She just wants to get it done as well. And that's the kind of community we have. We have a lot of pets and homes. And I would say in my subdivision, I can guarantee it, probably 70% of the homeowners have pets. So I can see a lot of people getting on board with contributions from outside sources to help us to be able to grow that fund and develop it.
Got about 3 minutes left. I can ask you one more question, or you can say what you'd like to say.
I'd like you to fire a question off.
Fair enough. So one of the things you were just talking about was sponsorships, bonding, trying to find some of that kind of funding. The other funding that has become very important at a local government level is grants. Obviously, the parish has some grant writers in the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, but grants have become a huge part of how to fund a lot of ongoing things. What are your feelings about grants, and how, should you be elected, would you push for more grant funding, less grant funding, that kind of thing on the parish council?
If it's feasible, I'd like to hire more people that have the aggression to go get those grants. That's bottom line. I don't know the head count there in that department right now. I haven't put a lot of research or time into that, but I'd like to evaluate that to see, is there an opportunity or are they overworked in that area? What's the capacity of what they're doing? And if we could come up with another head that could assist and help and to encourage them to go after those grants, I think that's a start. And also, I don't oppose grants because, if there's not too much luggage attached to it from the feds and we can deal with it and we can improve our health and the safety of our parish, by no means, I think I would be considered, and I wouldn't oppose it at all. I'd be really for it.
Okay. Well, anything else that you'd like to say as a wrap up?
I just want to thank y'all for allowing me to speak. And on behalf of District 2 and representation of the area that I live in. And my name's Kyle Parker. I'm running for Council District 2, Livingston Parish. And if you need to get through to me, I have a cell phone number, and that cell number is area code 225-572-7817. And I also have an email address, and that's my nickname, Hoot. It's Hoot Parker at att.net.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us. And the last gentleman for the evening, we're going to take. Apparently, he's not going to get up here and talk. He's going to go have dinner. But the last gentleman for the evening is going to be Mr. Scooter Keene. He is behind me getting some water. So we're going to take about a 1-2 minute break, and then we'll begin our last candidate.